Awesome.
Thank you, Lana, for getting us kicked off here. Welcome, everyone, to the Get Ahead Before Graduation event presented by CSM Sport and Entertainment. My name is Patrick Sack. I am proudly the executive director and co-founder for Sports Biz Cares, which is the nonprofit organization that is super excited to provide this opportunity to you all today. So thank you so much for joining. I've got a short presentation I want to kind of get through as we start to kind of outline expectations for today. And then obviously we've got a presentation from Leah Chansky, who's here as well. Say hi, Leah.
Hello.
In advance of that, I want to make a couple introductions. So Lana, I want to introduce yourself, and I'll ask also John and Mia, who are going to be with us on the main stage today, to introduce themselves as well.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lana. You've probably been getting all of my emails, so thank you for reading them. I graduated from Johnson & Wales University in Charlotte, North Carolina in February of 2020. I've been with Sports Biz Camps since the summer of 2019 and been blessed to stay with them ever since. Right now, my role is the manager of operations and programming. So basically just making sure that students know where to go, and if you have any questions, to basically help them out. So yeah, thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Lana. Lana's going to kind of be the quarterback behind the scenes. So she'll be using the chat function to communicate updates to you all, share information like the event map that happens at 3:00. She's kind of she's the boss of all of us. All right. So we should be also making a number of announcements. So just make sure you follow those. And Lana, thanks for all that you do for us. Then I'll kick it to Mia and then John, just a short introduction on who you guys are.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mia Knight, and I will be a December graduate from the University of Pennsylvania. And I am the Programming and Insights intern with Pat.
Thank you, Mia. Very excited to have you. This is Mia and John's first week on the job, so we're throwing them right into it. So thanks a lot, Mia. Really excited to have you on the team. So Mia's going to be helpful with us. She's going to be chronicling the Q&A and bringing questions from the students up to the main stage. So really excited to have you on the team, Mia. And then John, talk a bit about also kind of how you found your way into the sports biz ecosystem.
Definitely. Hi, everyone. My name is John Bonney. I'm currently a sophomore at University at Albany studying business administration. I am now with Sports Biz Camp as an alumni engagement intern. It all started around 5 months ago. Literally, I was just watching a TikTok that was promoting their Hiring Expo event. So, I was once in your shoes, watching all of these industry professionals, and now I am here in sports business. It led to a fellowship, and then I'm now with Sports Biz Camp. So definitely take advantage of this opportunity. It will help you a long way.
Thanks so much, John. John's going to be running the chat. So if you want to talk to John, he's going to be looking at that. He'll be taking questions. He'll be answering things. So really appreciative of your time, John. And I think before we get into the presentation, and obviously we have the career conversations in the back half of this, but everyone on the stage today came to us through networking, right? So Mia was part of a separate program. I went and spoke at that program. We connected offline on LinkedIn, had a phone call. She was super impressive. We had an internship available. Boom, she's a team member. John finds out about us on TikTok, goes to the program, speaks on the main stage to share some really wonderful feedback at the spring event. Then he gets to a different program, and now we've hired her as an intern. Leah and CSM's involvement came from connection on LinkedIn through some colleagues at CSM as well. So I know we're all really thrown off by this concept of networking, and we're going to talk about social capital a little bit, but that's how the world works, guys. And we understand that as an organization, and we want to support you all in making those kinds of connections and creating that platform for you guys to kind of, people say it's all about luck, it's all about who you know, but we create the platform for you to get lucky because you're meeting people that you need to know and gaining insights from them. So it's not just something that people talk about. We at SBC have been the benefactor of that as well, and we feel the same way about you guys. Okay, so a couple quick slides, and then you're going to hear from Leah, which is why you're here today. And once again, please use the chat. We're going to have Q&A as well, and if you ever want to raise your hand and ask a question, you can do that as well. Cool. I'm going to jump in and then look for either John or Mia to confirm they can see my screen. You guys see my screen? Someone say yes. I can't see your face.
Yes.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it. So we start everything we do by saying thank you. So thank you to you all for attending. We know that you have class, you have a social life, you have work, you have just college kid things that you want to do, but we appreciate you being here today. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you again to Mia and John. As I mentioned before, they're going to be super involved in the program today. So make sure you guys utilize that opportunity to engage, and they're there to help you engage. This event is free, as you know, because you didn't pay any money to be here. And that's because of the generosity of our sponsors, of which CSM is one of our sponsors. So thank you again to Leah and the team at CSM. Here are the other sponsors that also help fund our program. They don't just fund our program. These are primarily the organizations represented at the second part of today's event, which is the career conversation. So you'll be able to talk to people from Cast Iron Media, talk to people from Octagon, talk to people from Navigate. So these organizations both want to fund our organization in creating this event, but they want to talk to you. They want to meet you. They want to get to know you. They want to hire you, okay? And all that is made a part of that because of their support. So thank you so much for our sponsors. And as a nonprofit, we also rely significantly on volunteers and also on donors. So here's just a snapshot of some of our donors. But once again, between our sponsors and donors, there's no other way we'd be able to pull this together. So thank you to everyone. We always start by saying thank you. One other thing on the note of thank you, this is a great way to also network or kind of introduce yourself to someone. If you jump into your table, there's a professional there, and you don't know what to say, start by saying thank you. Saying thank you costs nothing, but gives everything. All right, let's talk about our event today. So the Get Ahead Before Graduation event presented by CSM. It's part of our new cheat code series. So this is meant to give you all the cheat codes to that really, really, really challenging college to career transition. If you're like me, I really struggled from the high school to college transition. My GPA freshman year wasn't nearly as good as it was senior year. Transitions are hard, and the college or career transition is equally as hard, maybe even more stressful in some ways, because it's like this big thing called the job where you have to be on your own and make money and blah, 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 blah. So the hope is that we're going to be doing quarterly cheat code series events, and this is the first of those events. So our goal for this event today is to put you in a position to succeed so you can get a job. Make no mistake, our interests are totally aligned. You guys want to get a job upon graduation, that's what we want for you as well. And then this is part of our off-ramp programming. So that's all about helping college students get connected to careers. So that's really the spirit of what we do in support of you all as college students. And beyond that, I mentioned it earlier, we want to help you guys build social capital. And it's all about who you know, right? But it's not just about who you know, it's about what those people know that they can teach you. And everyone that's coming to this event today is lending you their social capital, their experience, their network, their perspective. People with more social capital are typically paid better and promoted more often and at younger ages, right? So if you know it's about networking, you know about who you know, but the actual term for that is social capital. We want you guys to have as much social capital accrued as possible. So you can get paid more, you can get a job, you get promoted more often, okay? One kind of last note before I kick it to Leah. Be curious today, right? Everyone here is here because they want to help you. They don't know how to help you necessarily. They know the answers to questions, but you have to ask the questions. So come in, be curious. This is not the time to be shy about what you don't know. This is the time to be bold and confident about what you want to learn. Okay? The best way to learn is by asking questions and listening. If you ask a great question, people are going to love to give you a good answer. And I'll leave you with this quote, and then we'll get this kicked over to Leah. Curiosity is the engine of achievement. So at SBC, we hope that we've built a platform for you all to be able to be curious. And that's what we're looking for today. So thank you again for your time. I'm going to welcome Leah Chansky to the stage and get my slides together. I'm jumping from Canva to Keynote, so give me a second. But Leah, maybe start by introducing yourself while I'm getting everything rolling here.
Sure. So hi, guys. Thanks for coming and listening. I'm excited to hear more about what you want to learn and hopefully give you some good insights for getting a job after graduation. So like I said, my name is Leah. I am the Director of People and Talent at CSM. I have been at CSM for about 7 years. My career has changed a lot since I started there. I started off in the account management team, more working on events, then moved into business operations, then moved into people and talent. So I've had a little bit of a different journey inside CSM, but before I got there, interestingly enough, the reason why I got my job originally was through networking. My old boss at an internship knew someone at the agency and put me in touch. So like Pat said, that is how you get jobs. Granted, my boss at my internship did not get me a job. I got myself the job, but I got in the door that way. And that the role actually wasn't posted online, so I wouldn't have known about it unless I did networking. So I'm a big proponent of that for sure, since that worked for me. So that is a little bit about me too.
Thank you, Leah. I'm going to press go on the keynote, and we're going to kick this off.
Cool.
One other thing to note, everyone, if you've seen it before, we've got reactions there. So give Leah a couple hearts when she drops a zinger, right? Give her a thumbs up. We want to hear from you and keep you guys involved. It really does help create more conversation as well. So thank you. All right, Leah, I think we are good to go. Can you see it?
Yep. Awesome. Okay. So today, giving you a little bit of intro specifically about me, obviously, and CSM, Sport and Entertainment. Then we'll go through a little bit of fact or fiction. Would love your cooperation. And I don't know if that's the word. What's the word, Pat?
Yeah, cooperation is good.
Cooperation. We want you to be involved in fact or fiction. That's what I'm trying to say. And then some hiring insights from me. And at the end, would love to hear your questions for a Q&A that I can help answer, or anyone else on this call can answer as well. So yeah.
So we're going to play a video here that's just a bit of a sizzle reel about CSM, and that'll help kind of lay the foundation for the types of roles they have, types of people that Leah's hiring, and then we're going to jump into that fact or fiction. As Leah mentioned, that we want you all involved. This is not us talking to you. This is us having a conversation. So we've created a fact or fiction game. We'll be using the polls to get you guys involved as well. So I'm going to play this and get it out of the way.
All right. So just a few quick things about CSM. We are a sport and entertainment marketing agency. We have about 200 people in North America, split between New York, Charlotte, and Indianapolis. And we have about 700 people globally in London, Hong Kong, and the Middle East. Like you saw in the video, we do a lot of things with brands. Could be events, could be partnership management. What you see as branding in the background at events could be that we're selling sponsorships on behalf of brands. So there's a lot of things that we do at CSM that you may be interested in. And the one thing also is that we do have sport entertainment is in our name, but we also work in other industry verticals like food and beverage, lifestyle, retail, beauty. So there's a lot of things that even if maybe sports and entertainment may not be your number one thing, or maybe you just want to be a fan, there are other things that we work on, like you probably saw in the video, that may be of interest to you. So that is a little bit about CSM. And
thank you, Leah. If I could just add, so I'm partial, but prior to not having hair and being a professor and running this nonprofit, I was in the industry myself, and I spent half of my career working for sports teams. I spent half of my career working for sports agencies like CSM. And I think it is amazing career opportunity to work in an organization like CSM and the sports agency that a lot of students just don't know exists. You get to travel, you get to do all these great, amazing events. You get to work with brands in a lot of different ways. And it's just, I think, something that probably goes underrepresented or underappreciated because CSM doesn't have the brand awareness of New York Yankees or the Chicago Bears, right? But CSM works with New York Yankees and works with Chicago Bears. So that's one of the reasons I think we're so excited to have this event today and have CSM involved, because there's a lot of great, satisfying career opportunities with agencies.
For sure. That's a good plug-in. I would say I had no idea that CSM existed when I was in college. I thought brands did a lot of their events in-house. I didn't know that they worked with agencies to do a lot of these things. And I always say agency, when you go out of college, it could be the best career move for you because you get exposure to so many different things. And you may think you want to go into a certain industry, but then you realize you want to do something completely different with an agency. And like Pat said, I'm a huge baseball fan. I worked for the Colorado Rockies right after college. I realized I didn't want to work for team, but then I also got to work sort of on the New York Yankees, Boston Red Sox, London series, and give that my expertise. And I got to go to the game. And so there's ways to interact with that kind of stuff without actually going to a league. So I think it's sometimes easier to get through in an agency versus going league anyway. But I'm a big proponent of agency life. So
likewise. So thank you, Leah. We're gonna play a game of fact or fiction. So there's a poll that I'm going to launch here shortly, and we're going to get you guys a couple of just like easy questions before we jump into the hard-hitting questions. So what's going to happen is we'll throw up a fact or fiction poll like I just published right now. So you guys can engage. So these are a couple of questions just to make sure that you guys understand how this is going to work. And then once we get into the actual meat of it, we'll put a poll question up. Then we'll see what you guys think. Then Leah will talk about whether that's fact or fiction. And we can even welcome some of you to the stage to ask follow-up questions or provide your own point of view. Okay? Looks like we've got a lot of people excited to make money. Ooh, some people nervous about making money. Guys, it's so much better making money than spending money. It's so much better. You don't have to do any homework anymore. No more homework. No more Sunday night scaries. Well, you might still have that if you have a bad job, but at least not homework Sunday night scaries. Cool. So we're going to close that one. So you guys get the gist. I'm going to publish this one. I think this was probably a little more challenging. I'm confident in my ability to land a job upon graduation. Just got some confident folks here. I don't remember being that confident. I don't know about you, Leah.
I was very nervous.
Mia, you're ready to graduate. You confident?
I can say I am pretty confident.
Yeah, you got a lot of good options too. And hopefully we can help you as an intern here. Cool. So we got about three-fourths of folks feeling pretty good about that, which is great. Hopefully we can make you feel even more confident. For the other 22% of you that are honest, thank you. And we will definitely make you feel more confident as well. Sorry, I was giving you guys a hard time. All right, so now we're going to get into it. So Leah is the director of talent. So she is looking at a lot of applications. She's talking to a lot of candidates, and it's her job to find the right people, the most talented people to join the organization. So she is literally the perfect person to talk to about this type of thing. So I'm going to publish this next question, and what we've asked her to do is kind of walk through all the steps of the process from job search to job negotiation. And see what you guys think about some of these different comments and have you hear it from her, the expert, regarding some of these topics, okay? So I'm going to publish this next one, and then we're going to jump into it. So it's fact or fiction. Hiring managers do a Google search and review LinkedIn profiles for candidates. Do you guys think that's fact or fiction? Well, this is going pretty good. All right, so Leah, I'm going to get this screen ready to roll, and then I'm going to ask you, is that fact or is that fiction?
That is a fact. I look at people's LinkedIn profiles all the time, and sometimes also I will try to find people on LinkedIn to apply to our roles. If I feel like people aren't seeing our role for some reason, I'll probably go and start searching for LinkedIn profiles to see if people are interested. So very much, I look at LinkedIn profiles and sometimes do Google searches, more LinkedIn than Google, but that's why it's really important to make sure that your LinkedIn profile is complete.
How does that make everyone feel? Have you gone back and scrubbed some of your social media posts? Because if you haven't, you probably should, right, Leah?
Yes, I would say so. Yeah. I don't do that much I know some recruiters do they look through social media. I wish I don't have the time all the time to be able to do that. However, I would say interviewers sometimes will do that. So it's not just recruiters, it's actually people who are interviewing you that will go on social media to try to find you. And that can be detrimental to your success in your interview. So
that was actually exactly going to be my comment, right? So if you guys are looking at like the amount of people that are involved in potentially hiring you, there's Leah who's in talent, right? But then there's a hiring manager who's the person that's you're going to be working for. And the hiring managers that I know always do a Google search and they will find things and they will immediately push people off of that list. So it's not just, you're not trying to sneak things by one person, you're trying to sneak things by many people is probably the comment there. I would also give you one piece of advice. It goes both ways. So you should search out who would be your hiring manager on LinkedIn and see what they're all about and see what their posts are, or search them out on Facebook or Twitter, Instagram. You guys aren't beggars, you're choosers, right? So don't treat this experience like you need to work wherever. Like if your values don't align with the organization, or especially of the values of your boss, then that's not going to be a good fit. So I would take some power in that and be confident and use it the same way that they're using it against you guys. Leah, any comment there?
No, I totally agree. I think that it is impressive when people know more about the organization and also know about you. It also is more of a bit of an icebreaker sometimes when you find someone you're interviewing with to say, hey, I saw that you went to University of Colorado, which is where I went. I've been to Boulder. Have you been to this restaurant before? And sometimes it's like, oh, that's so much easier to start a conversation versus let's just go right into questions. So it's an easy icebreaker. And yes, I think you should be researching the people that you're interviewing so that you have those types of conversation pieces in case you need them, which I always think that it's just easier to talk about on a personal level versus let's just go right into the questions. So yes,
Agreed.
Definitely do your research.
All right, this next one is going to be interesting, I think, what we get. And then John and me, I'm probably going to put you on the spot here as well. So the next factor or fiction question is, a resume more than one page is acceptable if you have lots of good experience. Fact or fiction? Yeah, this is a little closer to 50-50. I like that. That's what we want. We want some debate here, Leah.
Great.
And it's worth noting, Leah is an expert, right? That's what she does. But also, like, Leah is a human, and she has opinions. And your professors might have a certain opinion. Your career service department might have a certain opinion. So it's on you guys to gather information and make whatever decision you want. But this is one point of view. So while I'm getting the slide up, Mia, we didn't make you submit a resume as part of this application process. We probably should have. How many pages is your resume?
My resume is 1 page.
Okay. Jay Bonnie?
My resume is 1 page as well.
So you guys were in the fiction model there. Okay. That's interesting. We'll see if our interns and our expert align here. Leah, is that fact or fiction?
It is, for me, in my opinion, if you are still in school and you're getting a first-time job, this to me would be fiction. The reason being is that although you may have a lot of good experience, my opinion is that unless you have maybe vice president and above experience, then there's ways to talk about your experience in 1 page. When we were still in offices, we would print out resumes, and the worst was when people had resumes that were 2 pages. You had to staple them, or front and back. There was a whole thing. But I would say that that there's ways to cut down things on your resume, but also it's really important to tailor your resume to what you're applying for. So maybe you don't need things from high school on your resume anymore. Maybe you should talk about your leadership skills in a way that maybe you may have more like club leadership skills than you do work experience, and that's totally fine. But I would always make sure when you do resumes that the bullet points that you have are actually impactful and say something versus that you're just trying to fill up space. So as a rule of thumb, when you're first starting out, and me too, if I was going to apply to a new job right now, I have almost 10 years of experience. Eek. And I would still do one page because it's easier for the interviewer. You're getting to the point of why you are applying for a certain job. You don't need to put everything on there. I probably wouldn't put that I was a camp counselor after my sophomore year of college, although it was one of my favorite jobs. Unless I'm applying to a camp, which I probably am not, then I probably would leave that off.
So John or Mia, and any specific reason why you guys only have one page? Any feedback you got?
Well, I think about.
I'm sorry, John. Go ahead, and then we'll get Mia next.
Okay, so I think about their time. Obviously, there's a lot of people applying to a job, so I'm very good at just trying to keep my bullet points condensed and straight to the point, so that it's easy to read and they don't have to look over 1 pages or 2 pages. Because just imagine if they have to do it for 100 people.
That's
Mia,
true.
how about you?
I will echo what Leah had to say regarding your position. Personally, my resume does not look the same if I'm applying to different companies, especially if they're in different industries. Specifically for the sports world, if I'm applying to a sports company, most of my experience are from sports. But if I'm applying to a company in different industries, I might switch it up a little bit. So I don't need to necessarily have all of my experiences from freshman year to now on my resume. So that's how I really keep it to 1 page.
But Mia, that seems like so complicated. It must take like an extra 2 minutes to do that. Like, why do you do that? Doesn't that take forever?
Would you like a job? If
Yeah.
so, then you can take those extra 2 minutes.
Well, no, Mia, you're spot on. Like, is the extra 5 or 10 or 15 minutes or 30 minutes of structure and organization worth a job with money and like a career? Right? Like, you guys have already spent years and years getting here. Like, spend another 30 minutes to do the right way. Mia, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I could definitely say that. I kind of dread every time, I finish an internship or, I need to revamp my cover letter. I'm just like, this is going to take me so long. But, when you really get it down pat and you submit your application and you get that, first round interview, it's definitely worth it.
Your resume should never be done. If it's done, then you're not making any progress in your career. It should be a fluid document. And then, just update it every couple months, learn about different things. I think that's a really great comment, Mia. And then Mia, we've got a Q&A here from Sue, kind of going back to the social media stuff. Do you want to maybe bring that to the table?
Absolutely. So Sue had a question for you regarding social media again. So what does a hiring manager look specifically for on social media? And if your account is personal, should you set it to public or private? Kind of what is the recommendation there?
It's a really good question. I think people probably have a different views on this. I think more of it is probably like red flags of like, ooh, I don't know if we should hire this person versus like what their content is. I always believe that you should have a private account just in general in your life. But if you do have a public account that maybe you're using for your personal brand, there's a lot of people actually who create their own websites to market themselves, which I think is awesome if you can figure out how to do that. I love when resumes come through and then they have a personal website to talk a little bit more about them that they wouldn't be able to put on their resume. So that's one way that you can show kind of your personality. But from a social media standpoint, I always say private accounts are probably important, but really if you do have a public account that maybe like Instagram or Twitter or something, that there's just no red flags that would hinder you in a job, basically. It's not really like a let's see if we would be friends type of thing, because that's not really the point. I don't do social media like that. I look on LinkedIn because that's really important for me, but I'm sure hiring managers do.
Yeah, and if I could just add one thing, and speaking about CSM's work, or even if you work for a sports team, guys, like if you work for CSM and one of CSM's clients is a big bank, and then you're posting on your social media about something inappropriate, and then all of a sudden the media is like, well, and then they think that you work for the bank because you work for CSM that represents that account. Now that's bad PR for the bank. So like when CSM is hiring you, they are aligning their brand with your brand. Like if you go off and do something horrible, it's going to say CSM employee, right? Just like if John does something bad, it's going to say SUNY Albany, right? Or if Mia does something bad, it's Penn student. there's a brand association there. That's why people are looking at that, because they want to make sure that you're going to be a value add, not a value detraction, particularly at an entry-level position where you're not as highly paid or as critical kind of to the organization just yet. So that's why that's important, guys. It's brand association, brand alignment. And you don't want to associate your brand with something that you don't stand for, which is why I talked about before. You should be doing the same due diligence on them. If their core values or their social media posts don't fit yours, then that's not a good fit.
Totally agree.
John, I think we had a question from Jesse that was in the chat.
Yeah, so the question is, when gaining experience that is worthy of adding to a resume, do you recommend that we remove things that are furthest in the past or place emphasis on experiences that you think are the best?
I would say place emphasis on experiences that you think is best. Like I mentioned, if I was working, if I wanted to work at a summer camp and they were like, we want summer camp experience, then I would keep that on there. But for now, that really doesn't serve me very well. So I just take that off. Granted, it's one of the lowest ones. Or some of my internships in college, I probably wouldn't keep that on there right now, unless it's something that pertained to the job description. I always think that you should tailor your resume to the job description. So when they have keywords and phrases in the job description, to put that back in your resume to say that you do those types of things. Your recruiter is scanning that resume pretty quickly. And like John mentioned, you could have 100 resumes in only a small amount of time. So when I'm looking at resumes, am I looking for those keywords that are in my job description is really what I'm trying to do. So I don't care as much as if you have a ton of experience, as long as you have the right experience for the role. And that's important to keep on your resume, I would say.
Awesome. I was actually able to invite Jesse to join us to the stage. Jesse, what do you think about that answer? Is it helpful?
Yeah, I felt like it's definitely helpful. This past week, I helped volunteer with the college game day that was in Charlotte, and I feel like that's something that I definitely want to emphasize on my resume rather than things that happened, say, in high school or things that may not be as important. So I definitely feel like that's a good advice. Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, and one thing, Jesse, and this will probably maybe come out later, the way that I kind of had filtered my resume when I was younger, and I guess to a certain extent now, only put things on there that you want to talk about in an interview. Like, don't put something on that you don't want to talk about. If you only have 30 minutes with Leah and you only get to talk about 3 things, like put the 3 most important things that you want to talk to Leah about. And that helps me filter out. So in that case, Jesse, it's like there's only volunteer experience for your college game day. It wasn't maybe as elaborative experience as an internship or a job, but you want to talk about that because you got really great experience with the brand and working at an event. And that's going to connect to why you want to work at CSM. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Jesse. Really appreciate you coming out. I'll make sure I tell Dr. Jones that you were here. You get bonus points.
Thank you.
Awesome. So that would be the filter I would recommend, guys. Don't put anything on your resume you don't want to talk about in an interview. Cool? All right. This one also going to be divisive, I think. Fact or fiction? Your resume should include a photo. And John, Mia, I'm going to come back to you and see what your answer is on this too. We know how long your resume is, but do we know if your resume has a photo? Okay. So Leah, I guess John, Mia, do you have photos on your resume?
I personally do not.
I personally do not either.
All right, Leah, did they do the right thing? Is that fact or fiction?
So in my opinion, that is it fact or fiction? You should not have a photo on your resume. Okay. So that would be fiction, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So the reason being is photos can increase bias when people are looking at resumes in the beginning. Granted, you can always go to LinkedIn and find your picture, but we want to try, especially at CSM, to create the least amount of bias when we're originally looking at resumes. So having a picture on there isn't really helpful for that reason. And for that's the reason why I would always recommend not having one. I would always have a link to your LinkedIn and so that on your resume so that people can go there if they want more information. But at least from a 1-page resume, you do not need your photo.
Leah, similar question. Is a photo on LinkedIn important?
I believe so. I think that it gives kind of a personal touch to that. It also makes the profile look complete. Sometimes when I go to LinkedIn, there's not a photo. It's like, is their LinkedIn complete? You know, are they trying to get a job? It doesn't come off as just a complete profile. So I would highly recommend that you put one on LinkedIn, but I would not recommend you putting it on your resume.
And if you need a good headshot, find one of your friends that's creative. Like your guys' phones are awesome now. They're better than cameras were like 20 years ago. So like have a friend, get some good lighting, like take a YouTube, whatever, but get a nice picture. I mean, John looks good on his LinkedIn profile. John, where'd you get your headshot from?
It was portrait mode in my hallway.
There you go.
Love it. That's all you need.
So take advantage of that opportunity. But the fact or fiction there is fiction. Do not put your photo on your resume. Okay. Once again, career services might say one thing. You want to talk to Leah. Leah is the one that's going to hire you, and she's saying fiction. Cool. All right. This one's kind of connected to what we're talking about here later. I'm going to publish it here. You should reach out to someone at a company to which you're applying, even if you don't know them. That should be applying, not replying. That's Professor Stack here not doing a good job writing. I'll get a couple laughs for that. So reaching out to someone at the company at which you're applying, even if you don't know them. Sounds kind of stalkerish. I don't know if it's fact or fiction. I don't know if I feel comfortable doing that. All right. So, John, Mia, what do you think? Should you be reaching out to someone saying, hey, you don't know me, but I just applied to this company?
Well, there's a way of doing that. You should reach out and hear about the insights and hear more about the program. And then you can tell them that you're looking forward to applying to the program.
Okay. Mia, what do you think?
I absolutely agree with what John said. A tidbit is that if you know that you want to apply, is to try to reach out before then. To try to kind of build that relationship, whether it's a few months before, even weeks before, but kind of reaching out after applying, it's a little bit difficult, but definitely always reach out. I am a big person on LinkedIn where I love to just talk to people and pick people's brains, and for companies that I'm even not applying to. So yes, I'll always reach out, especially if you know that you're going to apply. Try to do it before you actually submit your application.
All right. So Leah, 92% of people are saying that's fact. And you would say?
Definitely fact. I very much am a big proponent of this. I think, like Mia said, I think it's really important to make connections prior, especially when, like I mentioned, my job wasn't posted when I got my job. We sometimes have a candidate pool of people who we've been talking to that we want to just hire whenever a job is open. My one thing that I will say about that is it is so much easier to talk to someone who may be in an entry-level role that you're interested in, and they will respond to you, versus sometimes when you're going to the president of an organization or sometimes a recruiter who gets messages all day long. I always recommend finding the person that you want their job and seeing if they will connect with you. But I also do think that when you do apply for a job, to follow up with a connection that you may have to say, hey, just want you to know that I applied for this job, or to reach out to the recruiter to say that. I do think that shows initiative on your end when you do that. And I may not be able to respond to everyone, but I do go and look at that person's application first if they did reach out to me on LinkedIn. So it doesn't go to the universe. I do look at that because I believe that if you're taking the extra step in order to find me or find someone else, that means that you could be a great fit for our team. So use LinkedIn and use your connections, use your alumni in your school. People are willing to talk to you and wanting to help because they were in the position that you were in at some point. So
awesome, Leah. John, I think you wanted to make a comment around that too.
Yes. So Leah, what do you recommend when someone is reaching out to someone in the organization, but they aren't getting a response back?
Try to find someone else. Keep going. Because I think that sometimes people just get busy. Sometimes people don't look at their LinkedIn all the time. Like I would be on LinkedIn all the time. I think it's easy to get discouraged when people don't hear back, but I would say just keep going. There's not an internal chat group that says, John's been reaching out to 100 people at CSM. Like that's annoying. That would never happen. So honestly, it would be wow, John just reached out to all these people and been talking to him. And I hear about it of like, we have to hire John at some point. That's usually the conversation that we have versus oh, that's annoying. He keeps reaching out. So I would just not get discouraged and keep going.
And I know you guys are all worried about being annoying. There's one really easy way to ensure you're not being annoying. Don't be annoying, right? So you guys know the difference between like being annoying and not being annoying. So like if you haven't heard back from me, don't reach back out to me. John Bondi doesn't reach back out to me and say, hey dude, you never got back to me. Like, no, that's I find that annoying. Reach out to me and say, hey, I hope you're well. Oh, hey, I saw Sports Biz Camps did this. Like, hey, I know you're a Browns fan. How about that game? Like, hey, I thought of you. I read this article, wanted to share with you. Or, hey, I think your organization's awesome. I can't wait to learn. Whenever you're available, I'd love to chat. Don't be annoying. Don't make demands. Don't ask for things that don't like. Be a human being and treat them like a human being. You guys don't like when someone you don't know reaches out to you and asks you for something, correct? So why do you think they would like that? So don't do that. Don't be annoying. You have an annoying friend, think what they would do. Do the opposite.
That's a great advice.
You can control your level of annoying. Mia, we had a question actually from Keegan. I'm going to show it on the stage. You wanna ask it?
Absolutely. So Keegan's question was, what are some ways in which you can stand out with regards to a resume or regards a resume other than qualification? What do hiring people look for other than education?
So I would say, which I know you guys are all in school, I don't typically look for what classes you're in or your GPA. I've never done that because I think that internship experience personally is what is most important to me. Internship experience, work experience, leadership experience, your skills that you have acquired. So if you have a special skill in Keynote or something, or PowerPoint or Salesforce, or you have taken a certificate in something, like that's really important. But I would say, I know that I remember going to career services and them telling me that I needed to put like the actual classes that I took. And honestly, I don't ever look at that. So in my opinion, sometimes resumes, the best ones are the ones that can take out keywords from a job description, put it at the top and say, like for mine, for example, mine will say people and talent leader. And then underneath, I would say employee relations, talent acquisition, some of the skills that I have. And those skills may be the ones that a future employer is looking at to see, like, does she check the box? Does she know how to do X, Y, and Z? And for me, I saw a resume like that and I scanned it and said, I need to know if this person knows how to do Salesforce, and Salesforce was at the top of their resume. I would keep reading versus trying to like find it in your experience, if that makes sense. So I wouldn't necessarily harp on classwork unless it's relevant to the job. I would more harp on internship experience, work experience, things like that, because that's really important to us.
Keegan, how was that helpful?
Yeah, really helpful. As an international student, sometimes I think it's hard when competing against Americans, especially if you want a job in America. So I was just asking to see if there's any other ways like we can stand out to maybe get that little bit of an edge.
Yeah, I would say submit your application and follow up with with who you think may be the hiring manager, who you think may be the recruiter, and say that you applied and this is why you're so excited about the job, because we want people to be excited about the role. And that makes you stand out more than probably 90% of other people who apply, who take that extra step. And sometimes your resume may not be in theory what I would say is like the best resume, but because you did those extra steps, that's why I would put you forward for an interview.
Thank you.
Yeah, Keegan, they're hiring you. They're not hiring your resume, So tell your story, and then do your research. I would imagine 0.5% of people that apply for entry-level jobs at CSM like review the case studies and say that work that you did with X client was really awesome, or how did you do this, or how did you do that? This like vibe of curiosity, like I'm not just making that up. Like if you are a curious person, people will want to teach you things, and then they're going to be like, I like that Keegan guy. He's curious, because then that means that you're coachable and teachable, and you want to learn. CSM wants to know that, Keegan, but that's not in your resume. It doesn't say curious. But once you interact with them or show your curiosity, that's why they're going to hire you.
And we always say soft skills are more important than hard skills sometimes in entry-level roles. So are you curious? Are you excited about the role? Do you want to learn? Are you going to be a good teammate? How do you present yourself? That sometimes is more important than like if you have the right work experience, because sometimes people do and they don't have the soft skills, and then we're like, this is not going to work out. So we want to teach you, especially in an entry-level role. You shouldn't know all the information. So yeah, that would be my suggestion.
Yeah, thanks again.
Thanks, Pete. And then Mia, we had another question from Sue we wanted to pull up too, right?
Yes. Can you hear me? Yes. So Sue said, according to LinkedIn, is that more connections are better? Do you look at the specific connections that people have on LinkedIn?
It's a great question, Sue. For me, I don't think that more connections are better, but I would say that I can tell if people use LinkedIn or not, and that they're using their network, because you can see, like, once you hit 500, I think you can, it just says 500. But if it says you have like 10, it's like, oh, I wish that they were using LinkedIn, a little bit more. They know people on LinkedIn. But I would say that I don't look at the connection, like the specific connections that you have. That doesn't matter to me at all. Although sometimes it is helpful when we have a mutual connection, and I could say, oh, hey person, do you know Sue? That person just applied for a role. Do you know about this person? And can you tell me a little bit about them? Sometimes we do that. So mutual connections are kind of sometimes important, but to me, it wouldn't matter. So I wouldn't say just go in. And the one thing I will say about connections, if you're trying to make a connection with a person, you should include a message on why you want to be connected with someone. Because I sometimes ignore, I have people that just like send me a connection out of the blue, and I don't know why they want to be connected with me. Or if they just send a simple message, hi, I saw you at this event, would love to be connected, thanks for speaking, then I would say, okay, accept. But if someone just sent me a random one, I don't know if I would necessarily accept, because I don't really know why they want to be connected, if that makes sense. So I think that's actually more important than when you do create connections that you're sending in those messages.
So speaking of cheat codes, we have two cheat code artists here on the main stage with us, John and Mia, who have mentioned that they use LinkedIn a lot. Like, John, I don't want to give away all your secrets, and Mia, I'll come to you next. But like, what is one of your like LinkedIn message cheat codes when you reach out to someone? How have you found success?
I would say, for example, hi, hope you're well. I recently saw you speak at this event, and I'll put a key takeaway that I got from them. I'm happy to connect and looking forward to learn more. Thanks, John. Simple.
I would accept. I would say, okay, let's connect if I got that message.
All right, real quick before we go to Mia, FYI, for the 55 of you on here, Leah just gave you the roadmap, right? Reach out to her on LinkedIn. Thank you for coming. You really taught me this or taught me that, or XYZ really helped me. She's going to love you. And I say that, and only 10 of you are going to do it, and she's going to love those 10. And I guarantee you, if you stay connected with CSM, that 2 of you will probably get hired, right? Like that small stuff, guys, is just like, because you were the 10 of the 50 that did it, that's what stands out.
Definitely.
Mia, you're next. What's your cheat code on the LinkedIn requests?
I think my cheat code, for example, like if you did not see them at an event or there were no key, takeaways to be had, I think just scouring their LinkedIn and seeing what really interests you about that person. So, if they're the director of marketing for, an agency, for example, I have agency internship experience. So I would say, through my agency, I kind of learned this, but I'm very interested to learn more about the specifics of your agency and your role and the differences there. So just trying to combine either your experiences or even interests with what they kind of have going on professionally is a great way to start off too, if you've never met them or seen them speak or anything like that.
Love it. Agree.
So we've got one more. I'll make one more comment, then we'll go to the last question. And this is almost exactly how we drew it up, Leah. We got 10 minutes left, and we've been talking and getting questions the whole time, which is great. Sales trick, people love compliments. Hey, that's awesome that you have that job, or it's awesome working at the organization, or I saw that post, loved your comments, or loved your, just reach out and say like, hey, that's nice. Like, when was the last time someone paid you a compliment and you didn't want to then talk to them? You might get another compliment if you keep on talking, right? So I would just encourage you to just be nice and say, hey, you've got something going on. You did this, you did that. Like, for me, when people get promoted, I always send them a message saying congratulations on the promotion, even to complete strangers, right? You just never know where that's going to go. And it makes you feel good. And them feel good.
Agree.
So last question, and this one I also think is a particular pet peeve of mine. So if you answered more questions than you asked, it was a good interview. That's a little complicated. Facts coming together. All right, so Mia, we're going to come back to you because I know you've been interviewing a lot recently. How do you know when you had a good interview? Like, what's that feeling when you're coming out like, that was a good interview?
I definitely think it depends on the interviewer. You know, some people like to keep that very straight face where you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't really know. But honestly, it just is the confidence in your answer. So for example, when they're asking you a question and you answer it, after, are they asking to get more information? Like, did you kind of leave the answer very open-ended where they're still prying to get more information? Or are they sufficient with your answer? That's really one good thing. Secondly, in terms of asking questions, my rule of thumb is to have three categories. So I always have at least 3 questions prepared about the role, the company, and then your interviewer specifically and their personal experiences. So 3 questions is kind of my rule of thumb. And if obviously there's more time, have a few more prepared. But yeah, that's just kind of my rule of thumb that I always go by.
So Mia, that's a really interesting comment, maybe a bit of foreshadowing to Leah's response on fact or fiction. So Leah, is this fact or fiction that if you're talking more than you're listening, that's a good interview?
I would say that's fiction. I think that my opinion is that they are interviewing you, but you need to be interviewing them and also showing your knowledge of the potential role, the knowledge of the company through questions that they can actually answer. So when people ask you a question, sometimes it's better to then flip it to them and say, they asked you a question and then you can respond with a question so that it's more of a conversation versus just feeling like you're getting questions asked at you all the time. So it's more of a conversation. I think that that's an easy way to do it. And I totally agree with Mia. Like, you have to have questions at the end that are smart questions that will impress your interviewer. Sometimes it's really hard because you're chatting and then you have 5 minutes left and they're like, do you have any questions for me? It's like, oh, I have 10 questions, but let's then think about what is most important for you to get across. And one of my favorite questions that people ask that sometimes is very hard to answer is there anything that concerns you about my background being a fit for this role? And I love when people ask that question because you can address things that the interviewer may say, you know, I just don't know if you have the right skill set or as much experience in X. And you can be like, actually, I do. And here's why. And then at the end, they'd be like, oh, I'm so glad that you asked that question because now I look at you in a different way than if we had just ended the conversation at that point. So that's just a really good one. I would always ask that at the end of your interview. If you have one question left, that's it. But otherwise, there's a lot of other questions that you can ask that are smart. That could be, what do you look for in an ideal teammate? What are some qualities of top performers? What does a typical day look like? What's something you would change about the company right now? That's a good question to understand the insight of, like, do you want to work for that company or not? How do people feel inside? I have seen you've worked for this company for this many years. What makes you stay? Those are some good ones versus like, what's company culture like? Because that really isn't a good question. That's just sometimes a filler because you forgot to ask questions, you know? So think about kind of how your questions can be different than other people's questions to make it seem like you're really interested and that you want to be there. So that's my opinion.
So much to react to there. The net takeaway, everyone, is, and Leah, this is really great, you will separate yourself by the questions you ask, not by the answers you give.
Totally.
Right? Everyone has answers, but who really has the great prepared, nuanced, like direct questions? That's how you're going to separate yourself. That shows curiosity. That shows preparation. That's why Mia does that, right? And then it creates a conversation. For most of the time when I talk to students, and I'm 99% of the time, hey, John, how'd the interview go? Dude, crushed it. It was awesome. They loved me. It was great. And the whole time I can tell they probably asked John questions and John talked the entire time. And that's why John thinks it's great, because he got to talk the entire time. Or maybe John thought it was going to be like a firing squad. He was so freaked out about this thing called an interview that he's just happy he survived. And they seemed to like ask him questions and like they were shaking their heads when he gave the answer, right? That's not a good interview. That's like jumping in the water and trying to drown, like trying to not swim. What do you call it, trying to keep your head above water? Tread water, right?
Yeah.
You want it to be a dialogue. A good conversation is I ask Mia a question, she has a good answer. She asks me a question, we build on that. We're starting a line of different things. And there's a really good rapport and conversation. That is a partnership. That's what you want. And bringing questions is really, really critical. And if you're uncomfortable with like how to do that, start in with the questions. Don't wait around for them to start playing offense. You play offense. How long have you worked here? Why do you love working here? What are things you love about this organization, right? Get in there and play offense before you have to play defense. And you're going to find that you're going to feel so much more comfortable and you're going to have a much better conversation. Mia, what's your cheat code question?
I definitely have to say Leah's favorite question. It's something that I absolutely always ask at the end, whether it's, do you have any concerns about my background? Do you have any more questions about my resume if it's in front of you? Just to see where they stand on me. That's a really good way to indicate, to see if you have a little bit of time to kind of, I wouldn't say plead your case, but say, oh, you have this concern. Well, this is basically why you shouldn't have this concern, for a lack of better words. But that definitely is my cheat code.
Yeah, I mean, Mia, like put another way, Leah is like very delicate with it. Put another way though, it's why wouldn't you hire me? Is that question, right?
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And it takes a lot of chutzpah to ask the question. And then to your point, Leah, whatever the response is, then you get to fight for that position. Like, while I don't have experience, I do have this, right?
Totally. I would say my only thing, if you take one thing away from this conversation also, is that thank you notes are insanely important and can differentiate you between candidates and also can hinder you from not getting a job. And thank you notes don't have to be handwritten. None of us are in the office right now. They can be emailed, and it should be emailed to everyone that you talk to, expressing your interest and excitement. Like John mentioned, even just on LinkedIn message, this is my takeaway from our conversation. I want to reiterate my excitement for this role. And there have been times where our top candidate hasn't sent a thank you note and we haven't hired them. And that shows your initiative. It shows what kind of employee you'll be when you show up on your first day. So after an interview, that is the most important thing that you could possibly do to continue your candidacy for that role. So please send thank you notes.
So Leah, this has been awesome. John and Mia, you guys were amazing. Great engagement from the chat, from the poll, from the Q&A. This is exactly how we were hoping we would draw it up, Leah. We were actually going a little bit over on time. There were two things I wanted to see if you would address before we move on to the career conversations.
Sure.
And then we've got some industry professionals joining in right now, and they're in this room. We're going to go into the smaller tables here shortly. But real quick, Leah, how does, if a job description says 1 to 3 years of experience and you're a recent college grad, do you apply or do you not apply?
I would say you apply, because sometimes your internship experience and the work experience that you've had in college could differentiate yourself between someone who has a year of experience out of college. So I would always say apply to those roles and let them tell you no versus you telling yourself no on that.
Years of experience are kind of a spectrum, right? Mm-hmm. 1 to 3 basically means entry level. If it's 3 to 5, you should not be applying. But I've technically never gotten a job for which I was qualified for as a job description. All right. So that's just one thing to know. A lot of students struggle with that. It looks like I have to have experience, but 1 to 3 years is your guys' sweet spot. The second question is, can you negotiate an entry-level job? And if so, one tip on how Mia or John might do that. Don't give away all your cheat codes, because I know you got to negotiate against these folks, but
I would say we expect you to negotiate. I think that the budget sometimes is set, on entry-level roles. However, it's always worth trying. And unless they said from the beginning, this is the starting salary and this is our budget, and then you say, okay, and then when we give you an offer saying, actually, that's not what I was hoping for, it's then why did you waste our time? You knew what the budget was. The things that you can negotiate are sometimes from a benefit perspective, paid time off. You can also potentially do some sort of bonus when you first start. There's other ways to talk about compensation as a total package versus just your starting salary. So maybe go down that route. If there's no wiggle room on an entry-level salary, you could potentially have wiggle room in other ways. I would say, though, that a lot of these roles most likely are non-exempt roles, which means that you're eligible for overtime. So that's something to talk about of what type of overtime hours are you expecting me to work? So any time after 40 hours. So then that also gets included in your compensation at the end of the year. So maybe your starting salary is $40,000, you work $10,000 worth of overtime, and really your take home is $50,000, but that's just something to consider. So just talk to your recruiter and see. I mean, they want you to work there. If they're giving you a job offer, they're not going to rescind it because you just asked for more money, unless it was told to you at the beginning, and then that's kind of why did we just go through this whole thing? So that's my suggestion.
2 follow-ups on that. Ask about compensation early in the conversation. You guys should not be going to second and third interviews if you're not talking financials. And a lot of students are too scared to ask that question. Get it on the front end, because you might, if it doesn't make sense for you financially, then it's not going to make sense 3 weeks from now.
Exactly.
And then you can ask, is that negotiable on the front end as well? Right. And they'll say, yes, it is. It depends on a range. Then now you have the freedom to not piss someone off by negotiating.
Yes, right? Absolutely. You should know at the beginning. I'm happy to tell people what the budget range is at the beginning. Some recruiters, I don't know. I hope that they do. But for me, I would always tell them from the beginning, because I don't want to waste your time and you don't want to waste ours. So That's just something to know.
Leah, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to have a couple quick slides and we're going to jump into our career conversations. Mia and John, really, once again, great work. So we're going to have these career conversations. We're going to break into smaller groups. We're going to focus on kind of the 4 aspects of career conversations with respect to the job search, the application, the interview, and the negotiation. So hopefully a lot of Leah's presentation sparked additional questions, and now you have your own roundtable to ask those questions, okay? So there's that. You're going to find your table by last name. I'm sure as I'm speaking, Lana is dropping the spreadsheet into the chat for industry professionals to know where they need to go. And then for you all, just find your last name at the table, the corresponding table in the lounge. One thing that I also wanted to talk about too before we jumped in was maybe your first engagement with us at SBC, and maybe your first introduction to CSM. Right. So one of the things that we want to talk about as SBC in partnership with CSM is what's the next opportunity for you to continue to grow, to continue to develop, and continue to build your skills and get more ready for your professional life. And we've got a program that we're excited to launch with CSM called the CSM Skills Academy. So for those of you that attended today, we're taking up to 20 students to participate in a free, it's fully funded 8-week professional development workshop. So you're going to learn about various professional skills that are important to you and also important to CSM. Myself and CSM will be delivering that content with the hope of getting you guys more connected with the CSM and taking steps forward, building your resume, maybe getting off that high school camp counselor off of your 1-page resume and including here. And it's going all around helping you become more professional, getting you guys that job, which we said at the beginning was our aligned goal. Okay. So if that's of interest to you, send me an email and you're going to be getting additional emails from us. So if you have any questions, reach out to myself and Lana. But if interested, once again, we're taking up to 20 students. Shoot me an email, patrick@sportsbizcamps.com. Send me your resume as well. The program kicks off October 4th. Your resume better not be more than 1 page, because we heard from Leah that's not where we want to be, right? So without further ado, I'm going to welcome Lana back. I see that she's here right now. Leah, thank you again for your time, for your support. Thank you to CSM for all the support as well. John and Mia, great work.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Leah, where do we go? I'm sorry, Lana, where do we go now?
All right. I dropped the link, so we're going to now end this main stage. Leah, thank you so much for this presentation. It was awesome. Everyone, you'll be able to find your tables. Students, if you have like a last name, for example, T, you'll be able to pick from either table. So just go where there are less students. Cool.
Be curious, ask questions, say thank you. The rest is history. It'll be fun.